Well, thanks for joining me for AM Talk, which is, of course, live on the Joy News channel of Multi TV's AM show. Well, and I have my guest, Nana Yao Iduchum, Youth Economic Dialogue Country Director. And thanks for joining me this morning. How are you?
I'm
now,
good,
we will have to start with Komlandomo, because today the management of Multi TV and the rest of multimedia are going to observe a memorial in honor of him.
Thank you very much for having me. I think the Kobnes issue, very sad one. I remember in 2005 I was at Katanga Hall, and multimedia and your outdoor program. So we're celebrating our whole weekend. I remember Kwabla, Jim Agla, Stan Dugbe, Dominic Gazepo, them came to the hall. And the way Katanga guys, fellows, we do our thing. I remember we trying to sue as we put it. So that is the fun, and the closeness that I got to, so far as Kwabena is concerned. But I really enjoyed him both on Joy FM and on BBC. And we wish the family all the best, especially the wife and the kids. It's very sad. But I must say that we have shown great gratitude to the selfless life that he lived in Ghana and UK, especially his contribution to the image of the country. If you've traveled outside, school especially, the way our folks in other countries look at African countries is always not the best. But when we get such shining stars in international media, it actually raises the banner of Ghana very high. So he was a great ambassador, and we'll be missing him very much.
The front page of the Chronicle, and we have a number of the papers this morning, the graphic, we have the searchlight, etc., talking about MPP's Day of Destiny, because over the weekend there are going to be regional elections, and in the center page or center spread of the paper, we have the story adequately captured. It says that the political journey towards 2016 of the MPP starts, and the general election as it is will elect the regional executives tomorrow, and I'm sure if some other ones are not held, will be transferred to Sunday. The Congress marks the commencement of what many say will be a resurgence and reorganization of the party after a topsy-turvy 2012-2013 political season of electoral defeats and failure in its petition before the Supreme Court. With an impeccable record of having gone through elections from 1992 till now, the MPP has become a force, and we're having Wuntumi, who is targeting the chairmanship of the Ashanti Region MPP. He's targeting close to as much as 85% of the votes in there. We'll see how that goes. And it's also because he feels that he can do a lot more than the party can do a lot more than they have done in the last two elections. Now, I have to turn now to Mr. Edichum and ask you, if you take a look at the current state of the party, what has been already undertaken, what would you say so far in terms of this very organization?
Well, I think the dispensation that we are in now, we must congratulate MPP, because MPP is one of the most important stakeholders of our democracy. And I have paid particular attention to the internal organization of the party. I think the court case delayed their normal reorganization exercise for 8 months or so. So it's very important that they were able to come back immediately to restart the process. The critical thing is has been captured by some of the papers. And I want to particularly focus on the election in Ashanti region, because if you look at the result from 92 to 2012, I think that we all admit that Ashanti region gives MPP, I think, more than a quarter of their total vote, or if not even close to 40%. So the operation in Ashanti region should be paramount and imperative to the party, because that will reflect on its success. The young man who has emerged in Ashanti, and I hear that he is he's been spending on the party. We should encourage that, because we are all worried about...
Which young man? You're talking about...
Mr. Wuntumi.
That is Bernard Ipiwo-Isiakon.
Definitely.
The mining magnate.
Yes.
By Ghana standards.
By Ghana standards. But the important thing is that we are all obviously aware of his source of wealth. That is very critical to some of us. So we know that he's involved in business, private sector person, and he's spending his money on his party. So there is nothing wrong with that. What we must watch, and I will urge EC to watch, is that they should not allow the process to be influenced unduly by financial inducement or whatever. The important thing is that you allow level playing field for all aspirants to compete fairly. So when Untumi emerges as a winner, all of them will rally behind him to promote the development of the party in the region. The second point is also that if you look at the current crop of leadership at the top level of MPP, I think that their performance has not been the best, especially if you look at the national chairman and the general secretary, because these are the two most important positions of any political organization. And therefore, if you follow the news, the organization of the constituency elections, where in some cases, some constituencies had to go around to raise funds on their own to organize their internal elections. That's not the best. It's very important that the leadership in Accra create a mechanism to raise funds, especially to support constituencies where they call them orphan constituencies, because they don't have MPs. If you have an MP, then you can say that you have a major stakeholder who we can fall on in times of such situation. So I think MPP is doing very well in terms of its reorganization towards 2016, and I think that we should encourage more business people, more intellectuals to seek political positions so that they will contribute in terms of knowledge, in terms of funding for the development of our democracy.
We'll come to the subject of funding very soon. But for example, on the front page of the Daily Graphic, it's been captured a picture there of Joe Gatti, former Attorney General, a Member of Parliament for Isikado, I believe, saying that let's hold elections without acrimony. It's become more paramount as far as elections in political parties, that there's always a call for all stakeholders or all involved to eschew all manner of talks and languages that are not decorous.
That is very critical, because, I mean, if you just oppose that to our national elections, we always call for, especially stakeholders whose duties it is to supervise the elections. We want them to be impartial. It is very critical that when it comes to internal elections also, those who are involved in the management of the election are also impartial. I think the call by the Member of Parliament is in order, but they should always follow their talk with action. That is very important. It's not just calling for less acrimony or none of it, or asking people to show decorous when they are campaigning. You must also reflect that in your engagement, your personal engagement with delegates and aspirants. The critical point here, in my view, is that how are they respecting the structures and the rules of the party? I think it is, if you follow the MPP, immediately after the court case, the way the General Secretary, the National Chairman, I believe, and some leading members of the party started pushing for one candidate. When you do that, you create animosity or you push people to alienate themselves from the party, because they will feel that you are pushing something down their throat which is not right. So I personally expect people like Honorable Jogate, who is second deputy speaker, for example, to show leadership in this contest, but try to reprimand in public party officials who are pushing the agenda of one candidate. Because when you do that, then it will reflect on the region, it will reflect the constituencies, and even the polling station or the electoral area coordinators will see that, yeah, this is where we are heading towards. So anybody who is perceived to be belonging to the other side within the party will be victimized.
From the elections in the ward, the polling station and the constituency areas, and now we're coming to the regional, these form the foundation for the election of delegates, etc. In addition, all that for the national elections. Yeah. Okay. Now, if we have some of these being the bedrock or the basic foundations for the overall in choosing whoever, yeah. And then we have all these happening, How do we make sure that political parties, and I'm not particularly asking you this very question because the NDC also tend to face peculiar circumstances. Definitely. Because they're also as big as yours as well. What should be the critical focus of parties as big as the MPP and the NDC to make sure that some of these concerns are adequately dealt with by their executive in a more consensus-building approach?
I mean, that is the word. It's consensus building. It is important that if you look at MPP and NDC, to me, they all have very good systems of electing their internal officials. Because MPP, for example, they have electoral college, which consists at different levels. If even the polling station executives are supposed to be elected by their polling station members, then they will follow up to constituency to elect their constituency executive in that order. It should tell you that the system itself on paper is fantastic. The missing link, in my view, is that the people who are supposed to manage the system always try to manipulate it to their advantage. And that will be to the disadvantage of the party, because you make the fantastic point that this is the infrastructure, in my view. The most important thing is how do we organize ourselves to face NDC and PNC and CPP and other political parties in the most critical election, which is the national election. So if within your own organization you are creating the environment for somebody to manipulate, at the national level you cannot do the same. It means that you will be pushing towards a situation where you always you win within but lose without. So you need, they need to listen to people like yourself, the advice that you're giving them, including myself, that consensus building is the route.
I'm not giving an advice, I'm making a comment for an actual question.
Yes, but NDC should listen to that. I expect that there are some constituencies, for example, that they should be able to talk the issue out. But if you look at the case, most of them are in court. Some of the constituencies are not voting. In Ashanti region, I think about 5 or so countrywide. And
there are even concerns being raised in certain areas where the delegates have even raised issues about the list of delegates who will be voting, etc. Some feel that some names should not be there, some others should not be there. In run-up to such events, once you have undertaken an election, there is some level of disharmony in the party, and sometimes perhaps people not knowing their way forthright just because there's been a loss. How do parties ensure that they take it from there? Make sure the reorganization starts just immediately after the defeat.
I think that the victors are supposed to be magnanimous. They should show compassion, because it's not easy to lose an election. But I believe that it is the responsibility of the person who has emerged as a winner to make the overtures to those who contested him but didn't make it, to ensure that not him only but his supporters are also given important roles in the subsequent campaign. Because as I made a point earlier, if you become a parliamentary candidate or constituency chairman, your major objective is to ensure victory in 2016. So what is the point in alienating the supporters of your opponent, who are apparently card-bearing members of your political party? It's very important that you galvanize the support of those who contested against you and their supporters as well, to ensure victory at the main election. The point you also made is valid, to the extent that if you look at the election results from 92 to date, there is no way one political party can win national election with its support base. It's impossible. It should tell the managers of the various political parties that those outside who are not members,
so to speak, the pollsters, etc., they said they are the floating voters. How do the parties appeal to them then?
You have to, try to estimate their expectation, because we all do have expectation what we want in a leader, as a president, as a vice president, as a member of parliament, or even as a constituency chairman. It's very important that you reflect. What we don't use in Ghana is that we don't rely on data. And I have read somewhere that an American consultant who came to Ghana to support one of the parties made a point that he's amazed at our conviction with that data. But it's very true. How do you expect that the person who is investing about 100,000 Ghana cedis to become a member of parliament can easily cross the 50% mark and win? The important thing is that there should be a small research to understand the expectation of the constituents. And I don't think that it's expensive to conduct that. And nationwide, parties are supposed to do that. That should inform the thinking of the delegate. The second point is also consultation and consensus building, internal. What is the structure of both NPP and DC? It's very simple. That the electoral college members are delegates. So they are going to exercise their right of choice on behalf of more than one person. So if you are a constituency secretary of NPP or NDC and you are going to vote for regional officer, national officer, you shouldn't use your own personal expectation to exercise that right. You're supposed to consult your base and ask them. I have Mr. Wuntumi or in Eastern region where I'm following keenly. I have a medical doctor like Dr. No, a senior consultant.
And it's something that in the United States they do very well.
You have to. I mean,
they do that very well. They're able to translate the views of their constituents or their counties or whichever districts that they represent into the college elections. And it's only once in a while that you get to have some deviations.
Yeah. That's the reason why it happens like that.
How do we make sure that forthwith we get this very mechanism and process in place?
The mechanism is there. I think it's about allocation of resource. If, for example, a donor says that, well, I'm interested in funding your elections or data collection, so that is where I want to put my money in. The political party managers will tell you, no, we want to rather buy rice and go and distribute them. So it's all about allocation of resource. So in this context, then we can even support those who are arguing that states should support political parties. I will urge that if the state is going to fund political parties, it should be on certain items, including research, so that decisions are informed by the data.
But those are proposals or propositions that have been brought forward over the last 1.5 decades, even though we've not been able to make any headway on the subject. But let's talk about the issue of funding of political parties. Now, for example, I had an interaction with some friends of mine who are in the MPP just yesterday, that's Thursday. And, well, there were complaints about funding, etc. And especially in some of those constituencies that did not have MPs. Because usually they get some contributions from the MPs into a pool for which they use to pay national executives and all that. How do we make sure that the funding is right? The source where the funding is coming is right. And then the parties need to make sure that whether you lose or you win, the streams of revenue are coming through. Because if we don't do that, then that questions the level of support and how they are able to extract their funding sources.
Yeah, it's amazing. But if you look, ICGC, I believe, is richer than MPP.
ICG is a church.
Yes, as a church. It's
because they are well organized in terms of membership.
I can trust you that if you look at the core support base of MPP, they will have about 2 million people, adult, who can pay. If you go to church, you pay tithe. If you're a member of an organization, you pay dues. So it is leadership inertia. And let me say, not lack of creativity, but they are not putting their brains to the right way of managing.
Well, it doesn't mean that you're saying that we don't have very intelligent people or very innovative people within the party.
It is that.
Because I know the MPP and just like the NDC also
MPP,
have people like
current national chairman, he's been a cabinet minister, the general secretary is a lawyer, NDC to the chairman, scholar who used to teach at university. You can't look down upon the academic and even their corporate experience. But what is lacking is that they are not putting their minds to the right mechanism in generating funds. And as I was making the point, I believe ICGC has less than 1 million members of congregation who are adults who pay tithe or even put in offertory. Why is it the MPP and NDC cannot have a database of their members and ensure that each member pays some reasonable amount per month? Even in Greater Accra, I believe that the 34 constituencies can look after 2 other regions, like Upper West and Volta region, where they don't perform very well. And NDC can also do the same in maybe Eastern and Ashanti region. The important thing is that they don't have mechanism in generating revenue. And sorry to say, I think it boils down to laziness. Because creating a database, you can do so with a simple spreadsheet. Because each constituency, the biggest constituency now has less than 150,000 voters. And I believe NPP
well, the database can be created. The point is that how do you
attract
go
people to pay?
Yes, how do you go on that persuasive approach?
Because look,
and make sure that people are not only rallied around the party when it comes to election or such events like this, but also all throughout even the so-called fallow periods or the lull periods within the election calendar period. We tend to have a lot more people who are enthusiastic enough to support their parties.
It can easily be done, because if you look at the structures of the political parties in Ghana, they don't rest. Immediately after elections, they start reorganization. And during the reorganization, there are a lot of party activities. The issue should be ownership. Let the people feel part of ownership of the party. So when it comes to making decisions at the constituency level, you don't impose the decision on them. You allow them to make their decision at their local level.
Well, we always hear the party saying they are participatory democratic institutions.
But that is them saying. That is them saying.
Well, both parties, all the parties actually say.
Of course.
It doesn't reflect on the ground?
That is the bottom line. It doesn't. Because for you made a point that most of the constituency rely on their MPs. That is a fact. I'm aware that in some cases, I had an MP on air saying that he has to go and pay the difference because they were able to raise about 700 Ghana cedis through the sale of their forms and other filing fees. So, situation where you don't have an MP, what do? You have to rely on, and there has been a situation where election was unable to be conducted on time in the constituency because of lack of funds. That constituency does not have a member of parliament who belongs to MPP. The important point is that you can check the data, and data will tell you that constituency MPP got over 10,000 people. If each member is paying 50 pesos because it's a rural constituency, they are making 5,000 a month.
Well, it doesn't necessarily mean that if you look at the election
results, you can. That's why I'm using that as an indicative.
Yeah, because the election result doesn't necessarily mean that everybody.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. But I'm saying that
but somebody may be a sympathizer. But a sympathizer necessarily is not a staunch.
May not be a registered, will not come to register and hold your card. But the point I'm making is that it gives the managers or the leadership at the constituency level one indication that we have 10,000 people voting.
Now, this very election that the MPP is going to undertake this very weekend, how is the influence or perceived factionalism within the party going to influence that? And even on page 5 of the paper, The Chronicle, is specifically being reported from Bonafo, for example, by Michael Boating, who says Alan Tremonti and Nanado rivalry in the MPP is surely going to determine who leads the party after tomorrow's regional congress of the party. How does this foment at this very level when we have regional elections, or let's say you start from the electoral, the ward, etc., to this very level? How does it foment? How does it?
It's now showing. I think that the reporter, he is on the ground and they have.
So it means what?
Evidence.
If you elect a lot more of your members, they also give you a head start in the national election.
Definitely, if you have more people who are aligned to your side, it reflects your strength within the structures of the party. But the experience in 2009-10 election showed that always in terms of voting for the presidential, it is more than that. So I saw the daily graphic report of yesterday also saying the same thing, and if Chronicle is buttressing that point, then I will urge MPP to look at that. Because the most important thing is not to become a flag bearer of a political party. For us to enjoy the manifesto promises, we need to see you at the Flagstaff House. And that is the bottom line. And that should be the major objective of all the aspirants, of all the leading members of the party who are in MPP. And they should ensure that they don't only vote for people who are perceived loyalists of a particular candidate, but they vote for people who are committed, competent, and loyal to the party, not to the personality. I think NPP is creating that niche for itself, which is not good. That most of them are in, you can see some of them campaigning at the back of a candidate, And if I'm a delegate, I will vote against anybody who comes to campaign because he is coming from.
I guess you'll be in a minority then, because the truth is that, I mean, it's something that is real. We don't have to take it away from whatever activities that will be taking place within the parties. But for this very election in itself, how should the delegates and the executives currently who are putting together this very event comport themselves and relate with the various constituencies or the regional candidates? I
think fairness is very important. Fairness, objectivity when a complaint is reported to them. And I must admonish Jacob Echegulamte for his comment on your sister station, Joy FM, that to me it was unfortunate, because you don't expect a national chairman to comment that if somebody has money, he doesn't care how he uses the money to influence the system. No. If you have money, you can contribute to the development of the party. And I think Untume is contributing towards the development of the party. He's not using that to induce the delegates. But leadership should also, put cool air on such a situation and not to inflame it. The point should be also made that when they form the election committee, they should ensure that since there is obvious split in the party, they should ensure that they incorporate all members from each perceived faction, or get people who are indeed neutral when it comes to their division in the party to man the process. Because if you don't do that, then some of the aspirants are really going to withdraw when they lose.
Okay. We will see what happens after the weekend and what the results are, especially for those who have gotten a lot more media prominence vying for the chairmanship of the various regions over the last couple of weeks. So we'll see how that goes. But on page 3 of the paper, The Daily Graphic, it talks about ECG reducing power to consumers during peak hours because power supply shortfalls from the Ghana Grid Company have prompted ECG to embark on this very power management exercise. I think they've just fallen short of calling it a ration, because I seem to have experienced it a couple of times this week or the last. And the exercise has so far led to the offloading of 70 and 200 megawatts of power from the national grid to consumers between 6 p.m. and 10 p.m. on different occasions. And we have shortfalls in gas supply and the need also for cost recovery, etc. Nana?
Well, the energy sector, to me, the last, I think, time I came here, we were talking about job creation. It's very important that we put almost a chunk of our resources to ensuring that we have stable power, because the production of goods, the facilitation of service delivery is aided by energy. And it's very important that we don't only pray that the doom so does not happen. We must work to ensure that it doesn't. How do we do that? We should, work towards ensuring that we have our own gas. Because I'm aware that some of the IPPs, the independent power producers, are itching to enter our market. If you compare what is happening in our telcos, do you think, though we are not enthused about the service delivery, but at least we can easily switch from one telecom service provider to the other? We should ensure that we have, ECG can have that opportunity to move from one, let's say, Greek Buidam or VRA to another service provider which can ensure them stable power delivery, because the ECG is a distribution point. They don't generate. So I will urge the government to ensure that we have enough gas, because it's cheaper if you use gas.
But so far we have the Ghana Gas project which is taking place, and ultimately when that is completed, and we're being told that from April to the subsequent months.
This is about the 6th time we are being told that.
Yes, because we've had some delays, and as a result of that, the completion period has been pushed forward.
Several times.
That should bode well for our energy sector, don't you think?
Yeah, that would do. That's why I'm saying that we should invest to ensure that if even we are not getting the Chinese loan, we can look elsewhere to ensure that we quickly finish that project so that we can get more power for ECG to also distribute. Because the report is accurate. Where I live, from 7 p.m. they usually take you off and come back around 10 or so.
10,
and
11.
That is the peak
Okay.
time. So we should ensure, I'm concerned about industry. For domestic users, I mean, we can manage. But industry, if you're producing and your power keeps fluctuating, it's going to cost you if you switch to...
How crucial is it that we have a lot more independent power producers in the country once we have stable gas supply?
That will ensure that we have enough power to distribute, and that is very important. We don't have to also allow only foreigners to invest in that market. Local entrepreneurs should go into that.
Definitely, but we don't have the technology, so we need to...
partner. That's very important. And we must also look at renewable. We should look at solar. We should look at the way we can convert gas or biofuel into gas, and the government is investing in that. But I think that we need to improve our investment in that direction to ensure that renewable power also give us some significant contribution in terms of the power that we generate.
Somewhere in Tema, the Tema West constituency, and it has a community in there called Ajekwijo. Actually, that's where I live as well. But just ahead of me, we have a community called Santo and some other areas. There's been massive demolition in the last 2-3 days by the Tema Development Corporation because the TDC says it's had its lands there encroached upon by the traditional leaders who have sold them to developers. These developers have spent so much money to develop them. Now, their legality have been questioned. They've accepted their fate, but the houses have been demolished.
Very sad. I watched it on one of the television stations, and it was very sad. Because I imagine how one gets up one morning and the next day you can't have a place to put your head. What we must do is that we should ensure that people do not violate the laws for them to be punished to that extent. I ask myself, so all this while, what were TDC doing? Because TDC is located in there, they're supposed to have oversight responsibility over the area. So didn't they see development being undertaken by individuals? And why should they have to wait? And it is not only peculiar to Tema. In Ashanti region, it happens that they wait until when houses have been roofed that they go and pull it down. It happens somewhere in Adenta also. I think in such situations where if the government can, that's why we need to create these affordable houses. Because it's done elsewhere, that we can at least host these families for about a week or two to ensure that we give them some welfare facility.
Oh, the team are joining us here. They spoke to the PRO for the Tema Development Corporation, as well as the chief of the area, which has been affected, Sraha, just in the Ajekwijo enclave, and we bring you those soundbites.
They think that we have sidestepped the court. The best place to go back is the court and cite us for contempt. They use the court, it's like they use the court to place an injunction on you so that you can't develop. By the time you go, they'll be developing. 26 last year, I think 26th May, it was a Sunday, we met the community. Because you see, because that area is heavily encroached, over 740 acres, community 23 alone, all of them heavily encroached. So we looked at the situation, and then, you see, and so we told them that some would have to go for your own good. And we have plans to scheme the area properly. But whatever projects we are going to do there, if it is whatever, houses, flats, whatever, it is for the community. But we are just saying that there should be some order in the way development is done in the area. We want them compensated for what? For illegally developing government land. How do you compensate them?
So far as the land belongs to us, we are always defending the land because we have seen that they were finding other means to capture the land from us. And our land is not in acquisition. Apart from the chief and the family, no one can face TDC because TDC is a corporation. And we know their time have expired. And right now it's a private entity. When we ask those who were destroying the houses, before you can destroy a house, I think it must be court order. Where is their order? They say order from above. So right now we are meeting our people, including our clients, which their buildings have been destroyed, to find measures to put in order. Yesterday we sit down with the lawyer. So they inform us to come and collect documents of the people, because those who build there have building permit. And if you get building permit, I don't think such action have to come on.
Well, so that's it. That's what transpired. But the point is, why do we have lands, Nana, which the traditional authorities knew or know that were in possession of the state? Well, if the state entity doesn't develop the land, does that give you the authority to sell the lands to developers? Because that creates future problems for the developers.
Yes, and I think in this context it's caveat emptor. That is, those of us who are going to buy the land, we should be aware of these laws. And you've already made a point that what does the law say when it comes to state lands? Because we know that through our laws, the state has acquired ownership of some portion or parcels of land in Ghana. So when you're going to buy a land, you need to find out. And it comes back to our attitude. We don't like to use professionals in the system. Because I think that the best way to acquire property like that land is to use those who have technical knowledge within that industry. So you consult a lawyer or a surveyor or somebody with experience in land issues before you make a purchase. But I will come back to the point that the lady was making for TDC. Yes, we know that the people have violated the law. It is true that they don't have, right to ownership. But why should you sit down, allow them to develop to that level before you punish them?
Why should the developers also develop?
It is yes, not right.
So I think both of them
some of them too are unaware.
Both of them had a responsibility.
Definitely.
Not all of them didn't follow through their responsibilities.
The onus lies on the state to protect its citizens. And TDC is a state institution. That is why I'm bashing them. It is unbecoming of our institution and our leaders that we always, because the lady who was speaking, I'm not personalizing it, and the leadership at TDC, none of them will have a family member living there. Is that the reason why they can just wait for about 6 years before they go and
do the demolition?
You understand? It's not right. We must also accept the fact that our country, most of us are enlightened, but not well educated. That he knows if I'm going to buy a land, I need to go to land registry to go and check. You understand? And we must also accept that the bureaucracy at our various institutions too is not suitable and attractive for private individuals to even go there to consult. So I still believe that TDC must show some kind of human face.
We have some of your comments on the subject of ECG, what they're undertaking now in terms of the small rationing they are doing by not telling us is because they're not getting the supplies from the Ghana Great Company, Great Co. And we have another doomsaw era is looming this year too. And there's a question Prince Kafri Ameho seems to be asking. A real better Ghana indeed. We have this one too from Achim Tafo, Bonti Benjamin. Government and ECG should boldly tell us that the doomsaw is back and save us the grammar. Ghana Bre and Masadan Amwabing Kwejo says, they've started again upon all the increases in utility price. Not this price, not gift price, okay, so real price to create better. One still prove unsuccessful. Ghana Pa. This matter is becoming serious and needs a amicable solution. Ghana Bre Malik Fongo. This is confusion. Who are they? Gridco, ECG and VRA. What are their roles? They are fast to increase light bills and will be giving consumers cheeky answers and explanation. Gridco my foot and to hell the energy experts in Ghana. That's a very annoyed Akurugo Stephen Aike. And Muhammad Ali says, so it means there's going to be a load shedding this year. God save Ghana. Bismarck Aboge says, it's so amazing that electricity bills are being increased all the time, means while they are not able to supply Ghanaians with the maximum power needed. It's only God who can intervene. Well, so those are your comments now. And talking about energy and all, sometimes there's wrong direction of energy. Because, sometimes fire and sun, sometimes they can give you energy. But there's fire outbreak at Agbogloshi. And our team is there. It's headed by Eric Curtis Howard. Eric Curtis Howard is live from the Old Fadama area. It happened last night. We're in there to look at how the citizens or the members or the inhabitants of the community are picking up at Old Fadama. If Curtis is on the line, he'll give us those brief updates, and then we'll come back to the studio and then get a wrap-up on the subject. And Eric Curtis Howard.
Good morning, Roland.
Now, tell me, give me a vivid description, because I can't see. Just tell me what's happening in there.
Okay, Roland, information I picked from residents indicated that the fire started yesterday just about 10 p.m. in the evening. The information was that one person had an accident and that he did not die. So he was doing a party, for a Thanksgiving party to the Almighty God, so for life. And one person who was in one of the wooden structures that mainly occupies the vicinity there, decided to attend the party, and he was boiling water, and he forgot to move the water from the fire, and that's what happened. So this morning, if you look at it, just about over 30 wooden structures. Most of the residents live in wooden structures in that part of town. So about 30 wooden structures and about some stores were destroyed in the fire. This morning when we got there, residents were trying to salvage what was left of their belongings. But the fire had not completely, it just burned some parts of the building. And where the fire occurred, the fire outbreak occurred, it is very difficult for the Ghana Fire Service to access the place. So it was residents themselves that went out to put the fire out. So it was a very tight, for some residents, they felt they've lost their livelihood and lost their belongings. But the one thing that I observed with the resident was that just this morning, others had gone to buy their plywood and they're going to buy their roofing sheets, and they're just about putting back their structures in place. So this morning, they said they are just waiting. Officials from the fire service have been there, even though I do not see officials there. I've been there for the past 30 minutes now, trying to assess the situation myself. No, none has been there yet, and they are still waiting for their leaders. Have told them that, and some people will be coming to look at the situation on the ground. So they should not really touch things. But the residents are being recalcitrant, and they're just going about their normal life as though nothing really happened. So that's the situation with the at Agbogboshi. It's near where the fire occurred. It's near the railway station at Agbogboshi, and this morning, like I said earlier, it started just about 10 last night.
Now, Eric, if we have the residents always quickly buying new plywoods or new wood boards just to replenish whatever has been destroyed and put up new structures, it means that there's a correlation with the way they observe fire safety measures, etc.
Yes, like you rightly put it, Willa. And one signal I picked from the mood of residents, from their body language, it was like, oh, this is nothing. Oh, it's easy. That kind of, and when even speaking to them, it's like, oh, I mean, it's normal. It's a normal thing that's happening in this part of town. So it's just going about, for them, all they were concerned about where to get the next plywood, where to get the next roofing sheet, to just come and build back their structure. Most of the houses there, or the structures there, let me put it that way, are wooden structures. So it's very easy to tear down and rebuild and reconstruct them. So they were bothered, yes. They've lost some of their belongings, they've lost some of their possessions and everything. But they were not really bothered. I mean, from the body language, I think they're not really bothered. For them, it's just about, let's move on with our lives and that. Because even when they are opinion leaders, the leaders of the community were telling them to leave things and let officials from the fire service, the police, and others come and do their work, they didn't seem to mind. They just were about that. Others are so unjamas and those kind of attitude they were giving to them. So it's just like, let's move on with our lives.
Well, thank you very much, Eric Curtis Howard, our man, mopping up activities at Old Fadama, also known in Ghana as Agbogboshi. It's in Accra, Ghana's capital, Ghana, West Africa, and giving us the very updates there. That's a very bad news. That's a very tragic incident. But if you look at the apathy of the citizens out there, it doesn't speak well, does it?
Yeah, no,
because it happens all the time. I'm sure this year this year, this is a first, but towards the end of the last quarter of last year, we had a number of them.
Yes, yes. And then I wonder why that particular spot is experiencing frequent...
No, because they just don't observe fire safety measures.
Yes, rules. And I think that we should encourage the stakeholders, not only the fire service. We have civil society organizations that are supporting people in terms of public education. So they should pick up the challenge, try to educate these market women and our folks down there who ply their trade in Akoglushi to observe these fire safety regulations. Another point is also that we should try to create the environment, the system such that when there is such an incident, because it's an accident, the fire service can also go there to curtail the negative effect that it will have on their lives. And that will mean that if you have to bring down some structures to create access, we should do that. In that context, some of us will encourage the city authorities to undertake that, because at the end of the day, you're going to save lives. So you shouldn't care so much about the immediate life that you will not harm, but you rather curtail their convenience and push for saving lives. So the city authorities must act properly to ensure that there is easy access to the market in case of fire outbreak. And we must also educate our folks down there to ensure fire safety regulations.
Well, thank you very much. We have had in the studio for AM Talk Nanayao Edichum. He is an economic management consultant, but also country director for the Youth Economic Dialogue here in Accra, Ghana. Thanks for passing through our studios this morning.
Thank you very much.
But tomorrow we'll